What's up, champs? It's Langston 2 Live back with another reaction. We got another banger. If everyone is hiring, why can no one get a job? Something going on. Is Indeed lying to us?
Despite the millions of job openings that are apparently out there, it's harder than ever to get hired. The news is constantly telling us that companies are desperate for workers and that there's tons of jobs just waiting to be filled. Meanwhile, there's stories everywhere of people sending out tens or hundreds of applications without ever getting a single interview. It just doesn't make sense.
That is true.
What really happened to turn finding work into a full-time job? But a few decades ago, even when there were job shortages,
that is crazy. That is crazy to even think of. Trying to find a job is a full-time job. That's crazy to think of. I remember back in the days when I grew up, this is probably gonna show my age, but like you could literally walk into a business, grab a paper application, fill that joint out, and in some cases you might have an interview on the spot. Or you will at least be able to hand that paper application to the supervisor or whoever was on site at that moment. Crazy to think that you have to go through the internet just to even try for a bot to pick up keywords for you to even get passed through for that even to see a supervisor.
it was still much easier to get a good job. The advice the boomers give of putting on a tie and asking the manager for a job really worked. All it took was enough tries before you finally met someone who liked you. Today, you could try this thousands of times and you probably still wouldn't get a chance. One difference that's easy to notice is that the bar for entry has gotten significantly higher for most jobs. Before 2000, a good college degree was almost a guarantee of a good job. Companies would compete with each other to get the most recent graduates. They were forced to offer a wage that could support a family.
How did you have an interview with a bot?
But now the tables have completely turned, and they're only really interested in the very top % of students. What used to amount to a free entry ticket has become the very minimum of what they expect. Despite over 70% of listed jobs requiring a bachelor's degree, only a bit over 30% of American adults actually have one.
This is one statistic right here why I kind of always I'm like with my future kids, I'm gonna definitely be an advocate to a trade before the old, like, unless he plays like a sport or something like that, or he got like a scholarship of some kind, I'm going to be an advocate of getting a trade, because those are low-key the people that got a trade are low-key the millionaires. I ain't gonna lie. You get a trade, start your own business, like, come on, dog. Like, that's like really, that's low-key something, that's a lost art nowadays. A lot of parents aren't teaching people trades. And I remember growing up, like my grandfather, like taking me on like carpeting type of work. I did HVAC a little bit, at least learn how to cut the grass and create a business out of some like landscape type of ordeals. But you know, plumbers, it don't sound pretty, but they making bread.
You don't just need a good degree, of course. You also need real-world experience even for so-called entry-level positions. Companies are so picky now that they're asking people who have just left college to have years worth of experience.
Facts. That's what I don't like.
The only way to get this is
I graduate college and I gotta have 3 years of experience.
Internship for the field you.
And what I don't like is how you gonna say I need experience and you not willing to give me the experience. At least put me on some type of like probation period or like an intern like situation. But how you gonna expect me, a new graduate, to get out of college and get the experience of 3 years without you trying to give me that experience? Like, it has to be more program. I feel like it needs to be more programs to give. If that's what they want, if majority of jobs are wanting a certain amount of experience, there should be programs after college that pay, that give you the type of experience needed for certain entry-level jobs.
Plan on entering. The past always looks better in hindsight, of course. There were still job shortages and people still got rejected. But the key difference between then and now is the massive rise in competition because of the internet. If you were a company in the 1980s looking to hire a few new employees, you didn't really have many options. Small companies could only recruit through in-person events, word of mouth, or physical leaflets posted to boards. It was a slow, long process with only a few applicants to choose from. Hiring managers had to treat each applicant like a real person, using their own judgment to figure out who would be the best fit. Large companies only had a few more tools
pursue
at their
happiness.
disposal. school. With their size, they could get a foot in the door
One of my
at
favorite
colleges
movies.
or high schools and hoover up applications that way. But even then, they were still much more limited. So just think about how much this process has changed in such a short time. If any company wants a new employee, all they need to do is put a listing out on one of the many websites for that explicit purpose, and it'll almost immediately be seen by thousands and thousands of people, along with a whole wave of different recruiters who will spread it even more. Without any barriers to applying like showing up in person, these jobs can get thousands of applicants. There's no reason not to try your luck, so why not send off 50 applications? As it's gotten harder and people need to send even more applications to get a chance, it's only gotten worse. If you're using your personal phone number to close business deals, you're not just mixing work and play, but you're sabotaging your chances of success. Recently, I've been doing a bunch of traveling, and I've been trying to operate my business through just my personal phone. It was a terrible idea. You can't really communicate with people because you're just Nextiva, where you can cut, and you can just one next to lies the potential pool of competition. Finding a job or a partner used to be so much more personal. It all hinged on the
Man, they getting good at hiding their personal ads and damn videos nowadays.
How you fill out your application
Them shits be sounding like the actual video.
Much more of an impact than pretty much anything else. And as a result, the standards have also gone up by ludicrous amounts on both job sites and dating sites. It makes people and companies think they have far higher standards because they have so much more choice. The reality on the ground though hasn't really changed, and the effects this has had on the job market have been catastrophic. It's led to the whole process getting much more dehumanizing for applicants, who have been turned into numbers on a spreadsheet. So those are the biggest reasons why finding a job used to be much easier than it is today. But the real devil is in the details. Even with all of these changes, finding work really shouldn't take hours of searching and hundreds of applications. The reason it's all so frustrating are the things that companies have done to deal with this new reality. So let's explore the different ways they found to make getting hired even harder.
My theory is that they put out these applications, right? My theory is they put out job listings to scare the employers to continue to work like or do more than what their job requires. Because we all have been to a job where they stay wanting you do other people's job, but don't want to pay you for doing these jobs. So they keep these listings up so it looks like someone could come in and replace you. Meanwhile, there really ain't no room for more employees, or they don't want to even pay for another employer, you know? So I think it's really like a psychological thing. And then on top of that, like, what if I do put job listings in Indeed and whatnot? Isn't that a form of free advertising to my business? If 10 people go fill out an application to this business that they've never heard of, just looking for a job, now they've got onto the website. This service is actually really good. Not only now do I want to get a job here, but let me go ahead and order this while I'm on the website already. And that theory just came in my head, but that's a good one right there too.
Today, the problem for companies
dang near free advertisement on these
websites.
websites.
Not getting good enough applications to choose from, they get hundreds or thousands more than they need. Every time they need to hire someone new,
it's
it means
expensive?
reading through hundreds of applications and filtering out all the ones.
It's probably cheaper than an ad or a commercial though.
Put more time and effort into this, but we all know that hasn't really happened. Instead, they've turned to one of the most frustrating and dehumanizing parts of the modern job market: automatic rejection systems. Today, over 97% of Fortune 500 companies use what's referred to as an ATS, an applicant tracking system. The basic idea is simple. An ATS works like a sieve, filtering out any applications that don't meet whatever requirements the employer has set. When they first came into widespread use in the early 2000s,
bro, those
internet,
computers bring back nostalgia.
Basic questions. If someone ticks the box saying they're not legally allowed,
bro, we used to
work,
have
for
those in
example,
elementary
they get
school.
rejected.
Those
Today, ATS
them
companies
joints is
advertise
old
their
looking.
services to the public like this is still the only thing they do. Companies like Greenhouse, Lever, or Workday have to admit their products automatically reject people. It's far too obvious for them to deny it, but they try to give the impression that it's only a few legal questions that do this. Of course, this isn't the case at all. Rejection questions, where giving the wrong answer puts your CV in the reject pile, are everywhere today. In fact, they're only the first hurdle an applicant needs to get past to beat the machine. As the internet becomes the main place to search for jobs, ATS companies had to adapt. They needed to keep up with the increasing amounts of applications, so they added more rejection questions. Instead of just filtering out the people you legally can't hire, they started giving companies the option to reject people based on whatever legal criteria they wanted.
That's why I always say, like, if you're filling out an application, just go ahead and say you're an expert at everything. If they ask you and give you an option to say if you're an expert or not, say you are an expert. Just get yourself in the door and win at the interview process. You have to be able to sell yourself verbally when you get in front of faces. But to get past the AI and this computer system to get a job, you have to lie. At this point, you have to lie and say you're an expert at everything.
Your address, your experience, any question they ask can make the difference between getting an interview or getting ghosted. Normally, they don't outright reject CVs, of course, they just rank them all based on the criteria they're using. Technically, all an ATS really does is turn tons of applications into a ranked list of candidates. If you end up on the bottom of the pile though, or anywhere near except the very top, you'll never get looked at anyway. An ATS probably won't automatically reject you, it will just put you so far back in the queue that you might as well not even be there. But even this approach still left too many applications for companies to look through. To fix it, they made the ATS able to read the CV itself. Today, these systems can go through applications and pick out certain keywords they want to see. If you didn't use those certain words they wanted, you'll end up at the back of the queue and eventually get rejected. They can also read how much experience you have in certain
I ain't gonna lie, I be using the heck out of ChatGPT to switch up this resume. Hey, I'll literally take that whole job description. Boom, I put it in ChatGPT, be like, what's the keywords in this job description that I need to put in my resume? Find those keywords and then switch up my whole resume with more of those keywords to fit that. Man, there's ways around this AI though. It's just if you're gonna be lazy or not.
Everyone who doesn't make the cut. Even today, these systems are far from perfect. If you don't have the same keywords they use in the job posting, then your CV can often end up on the bottom of the pile regardless of whether you're qualified or not.
Yeah.
Similar problems can come from how you format your CV. Some templates don't get read as well by the system, meaning they miss out important parts and unfairly reject people. There are ways to avoid this, like making sure you use the same words they use in the advert, or using a standard template that the system will be designed to read. At the end of the day though, it's not something that people should have to do. Rewriting your entire CV every time is part of what makes finding a job in the modern world so soul-crushing, especially
hard
when you just get ghosted over and over again.
Imagine making 10 resumes in one day.
With almost 100% adoption, the situation could still get worse. AI is perfectly suited for use in an ATS.
Is that like a form of like trying to narrow you down to picking just one job? Because I remember at one point, you go to Indeed, you're literally just gonna apply for everything, especially if you are on a job hunt and you need a job, you're just gonna apply for whatever. So is that a way to narrow people down to staying in one lane and one job type by making them have to make a new resume for every single different job? I'm like, that could be a form of like, trying to get people. Like, I'm just thinking on the other side on why they would want that. Like, why would that even be like something that they want in the world to be? Like, are they just trying to keep people in certain lanes? What is, try to make them, it's kind of like figuring out what your degree is going to be. Yeah, your degree is this. I go to school for this. Maybe I go to school for this for 2 years. I'm applying for this for 2 years. But when I want to switch majors or whatnot, it's going to be a big process to switch to another major. So I'm going to have to, some credits are not going to last, continue to transfer over. Some credits are probably, obsolete. You're gonna have to do more classes just to get this degree. Well, same thing applies to the applying to a job. Now I have to make a whole new resume with new keywords and stuff like that as well.
It's already widespread, and it makes these programs far better at understanding people's CVs and filtering people out. So companies will be eager to cut out just a little bit more of the human element from finding new employees, as they might just save a little bit extra on personnel costs. This is the crux of the problem with ATS and how they've taken over the entire process. Finding a job used to be a human experience, where you were in at least limited control of the situation. Obviously you couldn't make it a certainty that you get hired, but you at least got a chance to make a unique impression on whoever did decide. need. By turning all of the applicants into a set of data, companies dehumanize the entire thing. So out of the thousands of applicants there usually are for each good job, you have to stand out in spite of a system intentionally turning you into a data point on a spreadsheet. But even this incredibly infuriating roll of the dice is still the best outcome you can have when applying to one of these jobs. People talk about the 1,000-to-1 odds of getting a job once it's posted, and they might think they're over-exaggerating. In reality though, the odds are even worse. A large part of the rejections people get are because the jobs they're applying to don't actually exist. It's a problem that's only been getting worse. The ratio of people getting hired to job openings in the US actually fell below 0.5 in 2023, which means at least half of all job openings are for so-called ghost jobs, which are—
And to put go back to the point before, yeah, you get through the AI, but you still have to win. You still have to sell yourself in this interview. So I done put in 108 applications. I finally get an interview and I bomb on an interview. How discouraging is that? Because now I have to go put in 200 applications just to try to get another interview.
They're never going to get anyone hired in the first place. So let's explore the insidious reason companies keep these listings up and why so many people's time is wasted by them. Ghost jobs are everywhere on sites like Indeed. You can apply to a job listing and wait anxiously for a response, but after weeks or months you either get rejected or you don't hear back at all. In a lot of these cases, it probably has nothing to do with you or your CV. Instead, it was all probably because the company wasn't planning on hiring anyone anyway. In a survey of over 1,000 hiring managers, over 2/3 admitted to leaving their job postings up for a month. 10%
everybody on TikTok, pull up to the Twitch stream.
6 months without
pull up to the Twitch
role.
stream, everybody.
There's a ton of different reasons that companies do this today, none of which are a good excuse for the time they waste. Sometimes people already know who's actually going to get the job. Some executives might need something to do, or maybe they've already decided on an internal candidate. Maybe they're just going to dump the workload on one of their current employees but need to make it look like they tried to find someone else. It barely takes them any time or resources at all to drop some templated job listing online, and the longer they leave it up, the higher the chance that they'll hook that magical unicorn employee that they've been looking for. The person is qualified and experienced but will probably work for under market rate and won't ask for any benefits.
But I want to know how much that costs though. Like from what you were saying, you said that to have a job to put a business to put a listing on that website is pretty expensive. It's rather expensive. I want to know how expensive it is, because if this is the case, they're putting fake jobs on these websites. Are they essentially blowing, or does it go back to the theory that I got that they just want people on it's like free advertisement, getting people on their platform, getting them on the website. So then maybe now, not only do you want to, work for this job, is it like a product that you might buy now? The lowest package is about $500 a month. Oh, that's pocket change to a big corporation. It's corporations out here that's flying content creators out on private jets just to do a commercial, and you still paying the creator. Big corporations don't care about $500.
At times, these listings will just be there for appearances. It looks good for the company if they're growing and hiring new people, for example. They might also think that the current employees will wonder who's getting replaced and work harder to avoid it. There's a million sleazy reasons for companies to create fake listings. The job sites will be happy to take position. Wow. And that's another reason it's such a massive problem today. The job boards actively want dead listings. Fake listings boost their numbers and let them brag about the thousands of jobs they have available, giving this illusion of plenty even when there's only scraps on the table. These websites aren't there to cater to job seekers. They only need to do the bare minimum to stay functional. If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, not the customer. Job seekers on these sites don't have any agency. For most, it's a choice between using them or going hungry. The real customers are the companies who post the adverts and pay for the extras. If they want to post dead listings, why would Indeed or any other job board stop them? All of these things have made finding a job that much harder. Today, it's
dropping that 500
trial of patience unless you get unusually lucky early on in your search. Of course, if there is a problem, even one that's been entirely fabricated, an industry will spring up to solve it. Middlemen and recruitment agencies used to be necessary parts of the professional world. If you couldn't get your job seen by the right people, they could bridge the gap and find good candidates for the opening. You would think that this instant communication and the ability to have your job opening seen by thousands of people in seconds would have damaged this industry, but Instead, the recruitment industry has grown massively in the past few decades. In the UK, the recruitment industry grew to be worth over 140 billion at the end of 2022, 20 billion more than just 3 years before that. 30,000 recruitment companies now employ over 200,000 people. For a considerable sum, they'll eventually find you a job, if they don't just string you along for more payments. Even in the best of cases, all these agencies do is reverse the changes of the past 20 years and give you a real shot at a job opening.
The biggest scam is these jobs, or even not Indeed, but like LinkedIn and stuff like that. Them having not only the corporation paying for them to put up these job listings, but then they're making the people that are looking for jobs also have to pay for a advantage. Like that is the biggest scam right there. You're telling me I have to pay to find a job? That's almost big as the scam of you having to pay for an application to try to get to pay for an apartment. I have to pay for I gotta pay $100 to go view an apartment, and then let's say I don't get the apartment, I lose my $100. You telling me I gotta go look at 5 different apartments and I'm paying $75 each application? You got me bent like a stripper.
Most of the time though, they're only really solving a problem that the wider industry created for people in the first place. It's a whole lot of money which only keeps flowing in because of how hard it is for regular people to do it themselves now. So maybe you got lucky with automated systems, or perhaps you went through the hassle of dealing with recruiters. But either way, you've somehow got yourself an interview. Except even that crucial stage of the process has been changed beyond recognition. While there may be a short, often meaningless interview towards the end of the process, tons of companies have substituted that for questionnaires and tests instead. While the questions might vary, most of these kinds of tests are pretty similar. Some of them might ask you about what you would do in an imaginary situation, supposedly to test your critical thinking. Others ask the kinds of questions where you can either lie and give the obviously correct answer, or be honest and get marked down. All of them though are a complete waste of time. It hasn't stopped anyone from Microsoft to Walmart, all of these companies using them to sort through potential employees. In fact, big retail chains are some of the most infamous companies for just giving people these tests instead of ever actually interviewing them. Why they need to know your star sign to see if you can stack shelves fast enough is another matter entirely, but the reason Walmart is the most enthusiastic about these tests above all other companies will become clear soon enough. These tests don't come close to giving employers information on the skills and experience and candidates might have either. Most people rashly just try to figure out what answers they want you to pick. The integral question of whether you'd be a good fit, on which the entire process should depend on, has almost been completely forgotten. Today, even references are nearly always just a confirmation that you worked at a company for a certain amount of time. Any information on whether you were actually a good employee can't be given anymore because you can sue people who give you bad references. It means that companies just don't make themselves liable. So if they don't actually measure your aptitude, what's the point of all these aptitude tests? A lot of the time, the actual content
can sue somebody to give you a bad reference.
The main thing they're testing people on is how eager they are to jump through the hoops in the first place. If you can see through the corporate language and spend the time figuring out what they want you to say, you're already conforming. It's also why there are often multiple different tests at different stages in the hiring process. The more of their hoops you'll jump through, the more likely you are to be a good corporate drone. Walmart's tests have the same purpose as the humiliating dances
that only applies.
They break people down.
That only applies if you don't have someone that's a family member or a friend working at the place. It's crazy how fast you can get somebody in the door when you know somebody that's in the door already. But how hard it is to get in, you don't have no. I guess that is life. I guess that's life. If you got the resources and you know someone, I'm like, life is all about connections, I guess. And it's sad that you're forcing people to be homeless and live in poverty in Section 8 just because they don't know someone that wants in their environment that wants better for themselves. Just imagine if you grew up your whole life and everybody was working fast food and you actually wanted to get a retail job. Well, I can't get a retail job because everybody work fast food. I guess all I could do is work fast food. It's kind of messed up, but I guess that's life, and that's what everything
down just a little bit more. Another reason for these tests has nothing to do with the candidates at all. Instead, they're in place because the upper management has no faith in the people further down the pyramid to choose good employees. Once companies start hiring by questionnaire, they can take middle management out of the loop entirely. It means
There's
they
no
can put
way.
even more of their
No
faith
way
and trust
Target
into
wants you to have a
data and spreadsheets
bachelor's.
over real human judgment. With all of the changes we've seen in hiring in
I
the
mean,
past 2
there's no way
decades, a common
Target is
theme has
requiring
emerged.
bachelor's
All
degrees.
of these changes take the power out of the hands of the applicant and put them into the hands of corporate management. The process of getting your applications noticed is an exhausting numbers
My guy.
game. Either getting lucky or sending off dozens or hundreds of applications is the only way people can actually survive.
I looked at the data. If you just applied to a job through a job board, the odds of you getting hired were about 3%. So you got to apply to a lot of different jobs in order to have a chance to get them, and you're going to get lots and lots of just no responses.
Even if you do get through the first stage, employers will happily waste months of your time. They'll put you through endless different stages of interviews, tests, and trial periods, all to just ghost you after they choose somebody else. It's a truly dystopian part of our modern society that all of these barriers have been put in the way of people simply surviving. And the reward at the end of this arduous journey is just usually a job that pays the same wage as it did 20 years ago, before all of this even happened.
Don't get me started about the wages.
Climate, it's a question of survival. Every paycheck can make or break someone's entire life. These artificial delays have done serious damage to society and eroded what little trust there was between employers
Man,
and
I love
employees.
Pursuit of Happiness.
So
I need to go
play
watch
nice
that
to try
movie.
and dupe the
I need to get
system, but
inspired.
never really buy into any of the rhetoric about family or trust. Don't fool yourself into thinking these companies actually care about you or an equal system or any other garbage. It's a myth that everybody's hiring, as it's been shown repeatedly that there's much more to this equation that first meets the eye.
I was gonna kind of go into wages, but we don't even want to really go there because we know that wages are just not even anything close to what we need to survive nowadays. We literally pay to survive, and it's super hard. They make it super hard to invest nowadays because um, you know, living in itself is taking at least 2 weeks worth of your work, and you have another 2 weeks worth of work to pay your utilities and everything and groceries, and by that time, shoot, half of that's gone. But you know, I just advise everybody to continue to keep on striving to um striving to get a job that they're worth and that they feel secure at, and that um appreciates them and treats them correctly, treats them right. Don't settle for less, but I understand you. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and I'm praying for everybody that is jobless to find a job, and when you find it, make sure you remember why you got the job and stay gainfully employed, work hard at the job, and keep your job. Don't be a bad employee and then get fired and then complain why you can't find a job. So go be great. Go be great.